Hello friends, welcome to another session on mobile app development. In this session, we are going to learn the installation procedure for Android SDK, the basics of Android SDK, what is an Android virtual device, what is the procedure for developing simple apps using Android Studio. So let's get started. A quick overview of what are the important components of an app. When we say or use the word app, it refers to an application. So in Android Studio, inside an app or an application, we will have these important components like our Java, which consists of all the Java classes that we'll be using inside the app. It has a folder called RES where different resources, where RES stands for resource, all the resources like the colors, the permissions, the MIP maps, all resources that the particular app is using will be given in the RES folder. What are the drawables? What is the layout? What are the menu files that the app is using? What are the values? Maybe the color values or the array values, or what are the other XML files that the app will be making use of? What is the Android manifest.xml? What is the importance of having an entry in the Android manifest.xml file, which is the metadata file? And the Gradle, which is the very important or the heart of the Android Studio, which helps in compiling or building a particular app. So remember, in Android Studio, Gradle is the compiler which builds and compiles the different components all into one single app. Hence, it is essential that our Gradle is updated and synchronized before an app is executed. So let's get started. So what are the application components or the components of an app? An important feature of Android is that one app can make use of the elements of another application or another app. Your own app could make use of GPS, which could be another app. It could make use of maps, which is again another app. Or the app you develop will make use of the calendar, which is again another app. Hence, unlike applications in other systems, in Android applications do not have a single point of entry. So let's make it very clear. You can remember this way. There are no main methods. That means there is no entry point. Hence, a start or a startup point is defined, and it can keep changing, and one can call another application, and another application can be a floating application in something else. So there are basically 4 important components in an Android application. Not necessarily all apps will have all the components. Based on the type of the application that you design and the purpose of the app, we will have the components, maybe few, maybe all. So let's see what these 4 important components are: activity, service, broadcast receivers, content providers. And in addition, we are going to see a group of these components which we will use the word as intents. And intents are very, very important ones to understand before we start developing our own apps. So let's see what is an activity. An activity is a single screen which is visible to an user. It is very much similar to a web page. If you are browsing the web through a browser, and every screen that you see, you will call it as a web page. But here, you will call it as a activity. So every screen that is visible to an user is an activity. It may or may not contain different components which interfere and cause navigation. Every app will have at least one activity. So that activity will, if there is only one activity in an application, then that will be the startup activity. And many other activities can also be present, which can be full screen activities, floating activities, or activities which are embedded inside another activity. But the most important function to call or start an activity is start activity new intent of this comma new activity dot class. So this refers to the current context, and new activity dot class is the name of the activity that will be started using this function. So every activity is independent of the others, and all these activities are only subclasses. So they have a base class. And what is the base class? Activity with a capital A is the base class. So as I've already told you, an application may just contain only one activity, or it can contain any number of activities. So several activities can also be present. And hence, only one activity out of n activities will be marked as the first to start off. So once it gets started off, it can call the other activities in turn. So moving from one activity to another activity is accomplished by starting another activity, which in other words called as navigation when it comes to web pages. The second important component is service. So what is a service? Activities are those which are visually seen to an user, but service are those which do not have a visual user interface, but in fact it runs in the background for indefinite period of time. As users of smartphones, all of us would have come or faced this problem. There are times our batteries go down very quickly, and sometimes we identify or the system notifies you that there are so many background apps which execute and they consume your battery power. So in fact, we try to find out what these apps are and stop their execution. So services are those that run in the background. It might be just a background music which you want to hear when you're doing other works, or you're attending to other apps. Or it could be downloading a file where you're transferring some data. Every service that we define or implement in our apps are only subclasses. Again, what is the base class? We have a base class which is already predefined in Android, and that is called the service base class with a capital S. So, as of now, just remember a service doesn't have a visual user interface and it keeps running at the background. And just remember, it could be playing songs in the background from a playlist. Third important component of an Android app is the broadcast receiver. A broadcast receiver is again a very, very important component, which in fact does nothing but just receives and reacts to some broadcast announcements. These announcements originate from the system. For example, there are times you will get a message from your mobile or a notification in your mobile when you travel in a train. You travel from one location to another location. Maybe you change your time zone, or maybe your battery power has gone down. Very low battery, a notification comes up. It is the broadcast receiver. It just reacts to the announcement. Or sometimes when you take a picture or a screenshot, a message comes up or pops up and says a picture has been taken. Or in case you made some changes, there is a broadcast announcement that comes. So broadcast receivers are those again that work behind the scene. And number 4, we have content providers. Now these content providers, as the term says, content refers to the data or the storage, and they are usually stored in databases. A content provider is nothing but some storage that makes data available to applications which make use of the data. Hence, Android comes with a number of content providers for different types of data. You have an audio content provider for providing audio to the different applications. Similarly, video for images, for contacts, etc. For different types of data, we have different content providers. So all said and done, these 4 are the important components of an Android app. So the activities, services, and broadcast receivers come under a common name called intents. Intents are asynchronous messages. I'm sure as an Android developer, you will be depending on these intents for developing and designing your own apps. Intents request for an action to be performed and supports interaction among the various components, be it an activity, be it a service, or a broadcast receiver. An intent is also an object that holds the content of the message. For example, if the intent is an activity or a service, then the intent is called maybe in the form of an URI or another function. Maybe that intent could be to present an image to a user, or simply pop up a text box and ask the user to type a data. But when the intent comes as an object for broadcast receivers, then the intent object name will be the action that has been announced. As we've just seen, broadcast receivers are those that announce. They receive something and just announce it. It may be just an announcement that the camera button is pressed or a screenshot that is taken. So in that case, the intent object is the action that has been announced. If the intent is an activity or a service, then it is going to be the URI of the data that is requested or the action that is requested. So please remember, activities, services, and broadcast receivers are given a common name called intents. And these intents could also be pending events, pending intents, which we will be seeing. in our upcoming sessions. So once you've understood what is the important components in an app that you design or implement or develop using Android Studio, you should also remember how to create an Android virtual device. It is important for all of us to note that the Android virtual device helps us to virtually create a device. It is not possible to have and execute all our apps on a real-time basis. So we are in need of emulators. And this Android virtual device, which we will call it as the AVD, which is present in the Android Studio, defines the system image and allows us to keep all the settings based on our requirements so that we can just emulate and see what will be the output or what will be our app interaction when it is executed and when it goes through a series of activities. So in order to create an AVD, we will have to select tools and then select Android, where you can find the AVD manager. All you have to do is just click the AVD manager icon and the toolbox just opens. So the Android virtual device manager will help us to create a virtual device. So we have to click the button create virtual device. So once we do it, you can select a list from a list of categories. You can select what category of phone that you want to design. Select for the emulator what is the font size, what is the resolution, what is the pixels based on your requirement. And especially when you click on the next button, please remember to choose the correct SDK version. Here, many developers fail to select the correct SDK version. So this SDK, software development kit version, should be based on the version or the minimum API that was selected while creating the project. So the moment when you open your Android Studio and you say File, Open Project, and you create a new project, remember the minimum SDK that you have mentioned there and select it accordingly. And then give a name for your AVD, and that's it. You're all done. Just click the finish button and you're off to execute or emulate and see how your app will actually work. That's for now. Thanks for learning. This is Esther Hannah signing off. See you in the next session.